Hello everybody, welcome to the interesting show.
嗨，大家欢迎收听水豆 I'm Janet.
I'm Irene.
So what are we going to talk about today?
Today we're going to talk about our teenage fantasy, American dream. I have to admit that I have this when I was in high school. I always wanted to live in America and thinking about life would be like a TV show. So do you have an American dream, Janet?
When I was in high school, I really loved the movies Edward Scissorhands and Dark Shadows. Those really made me have big major crush on Johnny Depp. When I was in that age, and I really wish one day I could fly to the US to meet him.
I think I love their pop culture like music and TV shows. My favorite is Wizard of Waverly Place. So when I was in college, I went on a working holiday in New York State for 3 months.
Guess what? Today we have a very special guest who actually lived in US for over 18 years.
Wow. Let's welcome Sophie.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophie.
Okay, you can introduce yourself to our audience.
Okay. Hi. So I was actually born and raised in Taiwan, and I stayed in Taiwan until I was 18. I had the opportunity to be a foreign exchange student in the U.S. And next thing we know, 1 year turned into 18 years in the U.S. So here I am. I moved back to Taiwan in 2019. 所以我其实是在台湾出生长大的，那一路在台湾长到高中18岁，因缘机会之下，有机会去美国当交换学生，这一交换不知道为什么就变成18年了。那我是在2019年搬回台湾的。
哇，
那不就是刚好是疫情之前吗？
运气很好，
正当疫情，对
对，真的就是疫情之前1年，根本不知道什么事都不知道的时候就搬回来了。
哦，
对，
哇，18年很久哎，就真的是一个
就基本上你已经是老师，你刚刚是说你是在学的期间就去了吗？
嗯，对，
高中嘛，算
对，高中最后1年。对，
对，
好，那我们今天这一集比较特别，我们会用 bilingual 的方式，就是前半段会是中文，老师会聊一下他在美国的生活，跟他为什么会去美国的一些小故事。那后半段呢，我们会用英文的方式，所以如果你想练习英文听力的话，记得要待到最后，或是你现在也可以直接跳过去后面。好，那我们就先开始来聊聊，就是老师你当初为什么会去美国这个地方？你也有美国梦吗？
其实美国梦这个东西还蛮微妙的，因为我小时候就很想出国，然后我爸妈说，我们家是没有钱让你出国的，所以你就不要想了，呵呵呵这样子。所以我其实一直有在参加不一样的什么演讲比赛啊、朗读比赛啊、拼字比赛，那或多或少都会赢一些有的没有的东西回来这样子。然后有时候有奖金，然后有出国去玩啊或者是什么的。可是后来有一次，其实这个演讲比赛分2次，它都是同一个机构主办的。那他第一次其实是赢的话，你可以去当暑假游学1个暑假，结果那一场我输了，
好可惜，
而且输得非常惨，所以你知道我回家哭了3天。后来呢，后来这个机构跟台北市政府一起联合去举办了一个演讲比赛，那这个就是去1年的交换学生。然后呢，他就是在整个台北市选一个所有高中的每一个高中可以推举1到2个人，那你可以去选一个学生来去代表台北去当交换学生。那所以我运气很好的，就是从这个演讲比赛就某方面而言脱颖而出吧。因为为什么说就某方面而言？因为其实第1名不是我，对，我其实是第2名，可是第1名跟第2名的分数很接近。
对，
那他们后来他们就在观察，在休息时间的时候，你知道第1名就是感觉上就是拳击手，有没有？旁边有爸妈有老师递水啊，在那里帮忙复习啊。然后我就是瞬间要到所有人的 email 跟电话号码，还跟大家变成朋友，因为就聊天聊起来，就聊起来了
吧？
对，他们就可是他们就觉得好像出国需要比较 E 人这种感觉，
对，
所以他们就选我了。可是跟大家讲一个秘密，其实我是一个 I 人我是一个超级 I 型人。
老师，那你很厉害哎，
就工作需要。
哇，很厉害。
可是那个时候不是才学生吗？
对啊，那时候应该还没工作吧？
那个时候我还以为我想要当一个 E 人。结果年纪越大，越来越矮，越来越矮。现在是100%的 I 人，虽然大家都不相信我，
看不出来啊，超厉害。
对
哦，可是他们没有说，就是本来说好说就是第1名去吗？还是
没有，他们本来就是他们选而已。他们没有说
那个名次的用意是 就只是一个排名，
就只是一个排名而已。
哇，那
对，我忘记我是怎么知道，我其实不是第一名，好像是我已经出去回来之后，他们还说，你知道吗？其实那时候你不是第一名，我就哈
哦，所以他们其实也没有公布，
对，他们没有公布，他们只有说他们选了谁而已。
哦，那这样还好，
对，
他们这样花了1年在铺陈这
个，对，所以我就真的吗？他们就对啊，我就哇这样。
哇，那他们那个比赛的综合考量还蛮特殊的，
因为他毕竟是跟台北市政府合办嘛。
对，
那你如果选了一个就是去出国，然后都不愿意讲话，然后就是每天坐在家里一直读书的，他们就会觉得，那你去那里就让人家觉得好像
台湾人是不是都这样？
对，所以他们就选一个
看起来很会外交的
represent 台湾的形象哇塞，
国民外交就是从这种
做这样子，对，真的就是一切都是最好的安排。我妈常常说的，对。
那之后是这个计划完之后，你就决定就是要怎么可以继续待下去？
我那个时候在那里的时候，我就自己考了托福。
在那边考的吗？
我在那里直接考了托福，直接申请大学，还直接考了高中同等学历。因为台湾的 credit 在美国不算，美国的 credit 在台湾不算。我就说妈，你想要我回来当20岁的高中生呢？不要吧。所以我就去那里自己考了同等学历，申请大学，通通做完之后就妈，我有大学可以读了耶，我可以在这里继续读大学吗？我就。
你妈也不能说不，
对我妈就
很厉害，但我觉得能做到这样，其实确实家长应该很难说不，你都弄那么，
就我就已经 push 你自己到这么这一点
极致，
就对啦，就是所有东西都已经处理好，就只差学费，你很故意哦，
因为就是学费需要先
斩后奏，
对啊，
对，所以他们就你知道，算是被我赶鸭子上架的，让我去国外读书。那因为我读的也不能说是什么常春藤名校，不是私立学校，所以学费那个时候，因为毕竟已经20几年前了，还算可以负担，所以还好这样。
哦，
对，
但是就是一直都在那个 Chicago。
对，它其实是芝加哥的西边1个小时，所以芝加哥人真的听到我说我是 Chicago 人，他们会把我抓去打，因为我那边只有田，除了田还是田，都是玉米。对，就是4周都是玉米田，就是一个大学城这样子。可是我非常想念那里。哇，
改天可以再回去。你有预计要再回去吗？
看情况吧，最近有点忙，所以
OK， 那。我们可以开始来聊一下大家最 care 的大学生活。大学就是一个超令人憧憬，尤其会觉得国外就是应该会有很多 party，或是又有一堆活动，什么姐妹会啊，或是
兄弟会什么，
对，或是不同的，可能有些是国家或是语言会有不同的社区。老师，你那时候有参加什么活动吗？
我是乐队的。
乐队，
对，我是玩那个 marching band。所以我的朋友几乎都是乐队的人。那我觉得在兄弟会或是姐妹会这一点，我的 I 型人就展露无遗。他就你要不要进 sorority？ 我就 No，why would I do that？ 就你要不要进？我就不要啊，跟他们社交有什么意义吗？然后人家就没有啊，就是交朋友。我就可是我跟他们又不熟，算了吧。所以这个时候 I 型人就变得很明显这样子。对，那我主要那个时候是玩乐队，那其他社团或多或少，我其实没有特地去找台湾人的社团，因为就是我刚好在我的高中就在一个大学城里面，所以我在高中已经有一群朋友了，那我就没有再特地去找其他的朋友。我会待在那里读大学，也是因为我不想要所有事情都在从头开始。所以大学生活我们会觉得 party 很多的原因其实是因为什么？因为在国外没有夜生活，没有夜市，没有什么卡拉 OK 啦，没有夜游啦，什么都没有。你夜游只能去田里面夜游这样子。所以因为他没有任何其他的娱乐，就只好开趴喝酒。这个感觉，对，所以你会觉得有 party 就是大家可能不一定喝酒啦，可能就是去人家家里聚一聚啊，吃东西啊，聊一聊啊，然后你知道造成邻居的困扰啊之类的。
有被投诉过吗？
就是很吵嘛，对，就是人一多就会比较兴奋一点，到半夜2、3点就是会有点吵。
可是那个都是在大学那个里面的社区吗？
因为它大学城是这样子，因为它大学它一栋是分开来的，所以它大学校区里面是一个区域，那它外面附近大部分都是大学生住的那个很多公寓
社区之类的。
对，所以在那里有，或者是宿舍尽量不要办得太夸张，因为你知道宿舍毕竟是人家住的地方。可是，在学校附近很多地方，通通都会有固定的 party。那个 party 很有趣，那它有很多的 party，就是你只要走进去，你给那个主办人，譬如说给他5块钱美金去买一个杯子，那边的饮料就都可以喝这样子。
好
entry fee。
对，就是。
可是那个场域是一个人的主家吗？还是
对，因为 比较不会是一个人因为通常都是3-4个人
大家一起
租一间，
那个
对对对。那如果所以你去租，如果都是认识的人一起租的话，大概就是这个感觉这样子。对对对对。
听起来好
好玩哦，可恶。
对啊，
因为台湾的宿，我像我们学校的宿舍都很小，就是不会有，你们应该是有客厅的那种，就会进去，然后还有客厅。
这是一个 house 吧？
学校里面的话就是一般宿舍嘛，那在外面的话就会比较像，因为在台湾比较多是小套房那种，或者是甚至是那种雅房，有没有？就是只有一间房间，其他共用。那边我们因为是乡下，在城市的话又不一样，乡下的话就比较多像 townhouse，townhouse 是那种一排连在一起的，叫做 townhouse。所以他进去每一间就是可能2层楼，然后自己有自己的客厅、有厨房，然后楼上有3间卧室，
就是楼中楼那种。
没有，就是一栋
一栋
2层楼有的你如果租到比较老的房子，它就会有一整栋，可能就是楼上楼下还有地下室之类的。可是我住的地方没有地下室，
一整个
house， 对，
好赞。
他们才可以这样搞，因为台湾太多，
因为他们地比较大。
对，可是就像我说的，这个是乡下，在城市，你在芝加哥市区里面的话，就会比较像台湾。对对对，就是一间房间这样子。对，
很赞哎。
对，听起来真的蛮有意思。
对啊。那老师，你刚刚说你参加乐队的话，你是玩什么乐器？
我是打击的。我在室外的话，高中的时候是打大鼓，然后大学是打拔，因为打击没有厉害到可以去继续打鼓的程度这样子。可是我在室内是吹巴松管的。对，我一开始进大学的时候，其实一开始念的是音乐系，主修巴松管。对，可是后来发现一天要练6个小时的巴松管实在是太辛苦了。我喜欢，可是没有那么喜欢，所以我就没有继续去读音乐了。对，可是我在室内之前是吹巴松管的。
老师，你之前在台湾是音乐班吗？
我在台湾没有，我是中山女高的乐队。
但是也是有玩乐队。
对对对。
然后后来去那边才选择。
我小国中是合唱，高中就跑去玩乐队了，这样子。对。
那老师，你后来是转读什么系？
我转了2次系。我一开始本来想要去读医科。对，因为我觉得读医科很有趣。可是我的数学太烂了，然后再加上他其实医科他会要你去读，你要先读了数学才能去修某科化学课，因为化学其实跟数学很有关。然后就发现，而且我后来发现，你读了医科，在那个时候读完医科之后，还要再读6年的医学院。6年的医学院平均负债是20万以上的美金。
哇，
实在是太贵了，所以我就又转了1次系。这次就去读商用跟翻译的德文。
德文
跟日文，我主修德文，辅修日文。可是德文就某方面而言，其实算是黑历史吧，因为已经忘光了。
本来想说，老师来2句，
现在只能打招呼之类的。对，可是
打招呼德文怎么说？
就 hello。可是拼法是 HALLO。或者是你会说 Guten Tag， 就是我们说 How do you do 就比较像 Guten Tag。那有时候他们会说 Tag。对
，Tag，这边那个
就是 Good day 跟 day
得罪都。
对，所以对，可是德文真的是
很难。对，确实。
对。
那就是可能你觉得在芝加哥这个地方生活是怎么样？除了就是可能一般上学，你们会有什么其他休闲娱乐吗？
像我那个时候，因为我们住比较远嘛，那我们最常做的休闲娱乐就是去那个日本超市或者去亚超。因为那个日本超市它里面有一个记忆国屋书店，那个时候就会去那里买日本漫画回来看。然后所以我因为有修日文课嘛，那我就一起喜欢日文的同学，大家都喜欢动漫最多，那我们就会一起去那个书店去买杂志啊，买漫画回来看。然后他那边有一个 food court 美食街，我们就会去那里吃比较正统一点的日式料理啊，或者是对。那还有另外一间亚超，我们去亚超，你知道当你的台湾味想要吃台湾的东西的时候，你就会去那里买什么泡面啦，然后偶尔你会找到什么肉粽啊之类，你就会很兴奋这样子。那个时候任何在台湾可能不屑一顾的东西，到那里都变成宝。对，
它肉粽是有季节限定，例如说什么接近端午节才有，还是一直都有？
季节限定比较多。对，它会有季节限定。哇，然后月饼超贵，超贵，而且还很难吃。
一块多少钱一块？
我印象中一盒月饼好像4个的月饼台币要到将近1000块吧。
好贵哦，
就是真的很贵，
一个250，一颗250。
对，而且它
是异国美食，
而且它不是那种什么我们 XO 酱那种很贵的月饼哦，它真的就是什么可能枣泥啦、莲蓉啦这些 比较一般般的，
基本款
对对对对对，
哦
而且真的还没有特别好吃，而且还没有凤梨月饼，我爱凤梨月饼，我超喜欢吃凤梨月饼的。
哦，现在会好一点吗？
不知道
也不知道。哦，哎，太难过，
真的真的。
老师，那除了吃的之外呢？就是在那边生活的话，还有什么其他？就是你可能拓展社交之类的或者是有没有什么？
或者是你觉得他那边有什么东西可以去或是玩的那种？
玩哦，我住的地方没有什么好玩的啦。他们就是在秋天秋收的时候，他们因为都是玉米田嘛，他们会那种一开始他们就把玉米田整个种成一个迷宫。所以迷宫，对对对，
太酷了吧，
很大，非常大。你走完一圈，至少你就算知道路，也要走个15-20分钟那种，非常非常大。所以他们到秋收的时候，他们玉米通通收完了，他们就会把那个迷宫开放，让人家去跑那个迷宫。然后到万圣节就会有 haunted corn maze，就是会有那种吓人的迷宫，所以它里面就会有人在里面
吓人的。
躲起来吓你啊，或者有人会拿着假的电锯追着你，好像不是真的电锯，对，还蛮有趣的。其实还蛮有趣的。
所以那个是当地人自己办的活动吗？
你要说活动，应该是当地农场啦。那他们会有其他城镇的人也会来这里去参加那个，就是也不是参加，就是会去那个地方玩。
该不会有点像一个博览会吧？
没有，因为那个旁边什么东西都没有，就只有那个迷宫而已。
对，也没有摊位。
对啊，他们那边有很多观光农场。这样，当然芝加哥市区本身有很多可以看，它有好几个博物馆，有水族馆，有可以逛街的地方。芝加哥本身有很多可以看的。可是你在乡下的话，你的娱乐除了那个以外，还有很多农场，它会有什么苹果园，你就可以去。它那个秋天摘苹果，冬天砍圣诞树。所以秋天你就可以去那个苹果园摘苹果，然后它旁边就会卖什么苹果制作的甜甜圈呐，然后旁边在冬天他们可以自己去，因为他们有的人会用真的圣诞树，不是用那种盒子，就是我们平常都看到塑胶的，对不对？在国外你可以去砍真的圣诞树，就是你去走到那个他种圣诞树，他就我要这一棵，你就把它砍回家这样子。对，
可以自己砍吗？
对，有没有自己砍我不知道。可是其实真的圣诞树很会掉叶子，也是处于一个扫落叶扫到崩溃的状态。
好吧，那还是买假的，
买假的每年都可以用，其实还不错。对，所以我们的娱乐大部分都跟农场这些比较有关。那除了这个以外的话，大概就是去亚超买东西啊，或者是去芝加哥玩啊之类的。对，
廖老师，那你毕业之后是有搬到比较市区吗？还是你一样是
没有？我一直都住在那附近，我一直到最后2-3年才搬到市区去。因为那个时候工作就在离市区比较近的地方，比较方便。可是我其实一直比较喜欢郊区，因为市区人很多。我后来在郊区住习惯了之后，觉得你看不用担心停车位，然后不会塞车，你就觉得很自在，就比较不会特别想一直往城市跑这样子。对，就是有需要再去就好了。
那边就是如果是城市生活的话，你觉得有什么让你比较印象深刻的？
芝加哥好吃的东西真的很多是真的，就是台北也很多，可是芝加哥真的也有很多非常有特色的料理。然后他们，我印象很深刻的是，他们每年在那个 St. Patrick's Day， 就是那个圣派翠克节，他们都会把芝加哥那个流过芝加哥城市的那条河染成绿色啊。对，
怎么染？用什么染？
他们用那种 they say is like environmentally friendly， 就是，可是它是真的染得很绿，是超绿，像那个
超多那个
玉那种绿。不是我们平常像什么碧潭啊，或者什么那种，你看湖水，它是真的很绿。你可以去上网去查，你会看到那个河真的很绿，跟那个 Ghostbusters 里面那个史莱姆一样绿。就真的很绿，真的很绿。对。
但
那个。他是为什么会想要这样染吗？
就是 St. Patrick's Day 啊。
可是那个跟美国有什么原因？因为那不是一个就是是苏格兰还是爱尔兰的一个节日吗？
对，就因为其实美国有很多爱尔兰移民，非常非常多。对，所以可是其实我觉得就是一个，就像我们为什么要庆祝情人节一样，就是一个庆祝的原因。你要真的说它的背景是什么，老实说，我没有办法很清楚的跟你说我们就是因为要庆祝谁谁谁的生日啊，或者是有什么什么事件，可是就是变成一个习俗，你知道吗？就是那个时候大家就是会去吃 corn beef and cabbage 啊，会去吃各种爱尔兰料理啊，去喝那种黑啤酒啊之类的。
就是一个小小的嘉年华，
对，就是一个节庆
，Carnival，
对，有点那种感觉。
对，好酷。但我觉得大家想到芝加哥，可能也会想到它就是一个很繁华，然后甚至好负面一点，就会觉得可能有点
纸醉金迷，
对，或者是有一点可能有一些黑帮啊或什么之类。
芝加哥很有名的危险，就我记得好像那个时候看好像是排名第3危险吧，全美国。对，
很 gangster 的地方。
对，就是芝加哥有很棒的区，
对，
也有你没事尽量不要太接近的区。对，就是你如果去的话，我之前有在刚好有事情去那附近过，然后就是你知道它的快餐店，就是我们平常点餐的柜台，我们都是直接跟他点餐柜台有一盒大概这么厚的塑胶玻璃。就是 plexiglass， 对，
还以为是在探监。
然后它那个食物，它是用一个转食物啊，钱它是转出来给你的，你没有办法直接伸手进去。然后他要进厨房，那个门有2道铁门。
哇，这么危险！
对，你就虽然那个时候去是没有什么其他人在，你也觉得人就是这样，可是就到底是经历过什么事情才要把这个地方做成这个样子呢？
那个区域就是比较危险的区域。
对，
那它白天跟夜晚会差很多吗？
会。就是白天的话还好，晚上就真的尽量不要去那种区域，会比较安全。我这个人比较胆小，就是
你有目击到？
没有，我没有目击过任何事情，我
都赶快避开那个时间，
就是可以不要去，就是赶快
就能避开就避开。
对，我这个人很胆小，就是我知道他有可能有危险的话，我就尽量可以选择不要把自己放到可能会发生危险的状况，我就不会去做这样子。对
，OK。
老师，那你讲的那个危险区跟刚刚讲的安全区分别是在哪？
危险区南区比较多，就是我们会说的 South Side， 它就是很有名。那它再往西边一点的话，要看哪里。可是好一点的区好像比较往北边，像它再往北那个 Evanston， 那个我们的西北大学 Northwestern 有没有？就在 Evanston 那边就真的很漂亮，在湖边，然后就是
比较单纯一点嘛，那边的感觉。
对，就是你看到那附近的房子，你就有钱人。就是有钱人的房子很多这样子，对，就很明显，就是你可以非常清楚的感觉到，就是有钱的区跟没有钱的区，它差的还蛮多的，对。
其实好像是就是像可能台北也会，就是都会有那种比较有钱区跟可能比较
对
比较
老市区啊那种，对，就是可能还没有，
可能每个城市都会有，
对，或多或少
比较边缘地带，就是城市的边缘地带，可能会比较聚集一些可能犯罪犯或者是一些可能比较危险的事情吧。对啊，
有的地方会对，
但是我觉得可能台湾跟美国的那个危险度还是差很多。
我觉得枪支的问题很恐怖。
对啊。
我觉得主要是枪支的问题。
枪这个东西还蛮微妙的。美国人有一派的人，他们想法就是
支持嘛，
他们就是如果只有坏人才有，就是他们觉得我们应该要有可以拿枪。为什么？他觉得如果只有坏人或是非法人拿得到枪的话，那我们要怎么保护我们自己？这是他们的想法，就是如果枪支是违法的话，那只有坏人拿得到枪，那我就不能保护我自己了。是可以理解啦。可是就会变成，你知道，有时候像之前就有新闻说，你有一个人他在跟朋友玩，就故意假装去抢他朋友的包包，结果旁边的路人看到了，以为他真的是抢匪，就把那个人打死了，就拿出枪把那个人打死了，就会变成如果很多人都有枪的话，比较容易发生这种事情。
确实，而且应该是说，变成说有一些可能。他可能也没有到他有非法途径去拿枪的人，但他也可以轻易的拿到，但他可能有不太好的想法之类的那种。就是你要说轻易也不至于啦，还是要去申请啊什么的。对。可是就是他们对于枪这个东西还蛮有些人不能说所有人，可是有些人就觉得这是我的权利，你不能把它夺走。 不同立场。对，确实。所以老师你那时候有吗？
没有，
那么大个的吗？
没有，因为就是很麻烦，然后我这个人怕麻烦，然后就觉得如果真的怎么样的话，这就是命运啊，就算了这样子。
但是你那时候真的在你身边的人会很多人有吗？还是也还好？
其实还好，一半一半吧。对，那喜欢的他们其实平常枪也都是放在枪柜里面，
其实应该是当珍藏用吧？感觉喜欢的人是吗？
有的是珍藏，有就单纯像你会去收集一些喜欢的模型那种感觉比较多，比较不会真的常常拿去打。有人是喜欢去打
猎吧，
去打飞靶，有打猎的，有打靶的，都有。打靶它就会有一个像那种陶土烧的盘子，你就把它丢出去，然后你可以去打靶，那个就
那
还蛮健康的。
对，就是一个运动。
对，对啊。
打猎的话，我身边的人比较没有打猎的人，对。因为打猎你还要去处理你的猎物那些
对
啊，就比较麻烦一点，所以大部分人是我认识的人是打靶， 对，
你有真的很认真的去过，也不是认真的，就是可能每个角落都去到过嘛。毕竟在那边生活，
比如说芝加哥嘛，
对啊，那么久
有吧，算勉强算有，就是因为工作的关系，我跑过很多很多地方
啊。
对，可是因为都是在工作，所以你要说去玩，其实我还蛮少出去玩的。
哦，对，你有去过其他的州或是不同城市？
都是附近的州，像我去过加州，可是那是因为乐队去那里表演。然后去过 Wisconsin 跟 Minnesota， 可是那是因为合唱团去那里表演。就是我这个人真的不太出去玩，就很多台湾去美国旅游的人，大概去过的地方都比我在这里18年多啊。因为我不太会去请假出去玩。然后我之前有长假的话，就是回来台湾看家人。所以基本上不太出去玩的我。对。
但就是真的是主要是在那边生活。
对，我比较喜欢生活的感觉这样子。对。
Okay, so as we talked about earlier, we're gonna switch to English mode right now. So, the next question is, what's your hobbies besides work?
Well, if people who know me will say, well, your hobby is work, isn't it? Like, because you work way too much. But in all reality, yeah, I really work a lot. I don't mind working though. So, but my biggest hobby are probably food. And when I mean food, I mean eating, cooking, finding new food, learning about food, reading about food, everything. I like food, and I really like, this is going to sound so cliche. It's like everyone's like, I like movies and music. And next thing I'm going to tell you, I like long walks along the beach. No, that's a joke. I don't like the beach. Sand and shoes is a terrible idea. So
you haven't go to any beach in like Chicago? Because like Chicago has
they have a beach by Lake Michigan, and no, I don't like sand in my shoes.
Okay.
It drives me crazy. And it's always crowded, and I don't know where to park. So
okay, I can
under
imagine.
realistic concerns, I've never really gone. No. Yeah. I've driven past it a bunch of times, and it's really nice. It's just not really...
It's too crowded, though, probably.
Exactly. Really never had the urge.
Every single day, is it crowded? Or?
Well, not in wintertime.
Oh, okay. Sure.
It's frozen. But in summertime, it's quite busy, especially when the weather's nice, because you have to realize in Illinois, where Chicago is, they always say there's only 2 seasons. There's construction and there's winter. And the snow can go as early as September. The earliest I've seen snow was September. Not all the time, but maybe a day or two. And the latest I've seen snow was April. It's snowing in April.
It's almost a half
That's
year.
what I'm saying. Yeah. So when you ask me, like, do you see people on the beach every day? I'm like, no, because half the year we have very cold weather.
So that is the reason when the seasons turn warmer, though, people will all gathering to the beach.
Yes.
Jeez.
Because everyone's like, oh my gosh,
finally,
it's not cold anymore.
Sun.
So when I was living in the U.S., I'm like, I will never complain about summer again. And now I moved back to Taiwan. I'm like, I hate summer. It's the death of me.
Yeah.
It's the death of me. But when I was in the U.S., we welcome summer because you will have like maybe a few days, 2-3 days of 34, 35 degrees. And, it's okay. Every other day, it's nice. I'm okay with that.
It's because compares to the winter's cold, I think the heat is more
bearable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not often. You don't get those days that often. And it's not like Taiwan where you have 3 months straight. And then in winter, it's still 30 degrees sometimes. You're like, where's my winter?
It's so, yeah.
So, yeah, but when it comes to the beach in Chicago, it really is very, very crowded. So, yeah, I see crowd. I'm like, no.
Okay. Going back to the food. Do you have like any your favorite food in Chicago?
I won't say in Chicago, but one thing I really miss about the U.S. is like Mexican food. Now, I know they may not be the most authentic Mexican food. Okay. There are authentic ones, there are not so authentic ones. But I really like Mexican food. But it's funny because it's hard to describe why you like Mexican food to people. So we usually think tacos. Tacos are like tortillas. It's either corn or flour tortillas. And you put fillings inside. So you're like, okay, so I like enchiladas. What's in enchiladas? Well, there's tortillas, rice, beans, and meat. Well, what's in a burrito? Well, there's tortillas, rice, beans, and meat.
So it's basically the same filling.
Yes, it's the same filling in almost everything, just different sauces and different ways to prepare it. But I really like it. I also really like salsa. I like guacamole. So I really like Mexican food because it's just something that I associate with a really good time a lot of times too. So I like Mexican food a lot. There are some good ones in Taipei, but it's not anywhere too as popular or as commonly seen, and it's way more expensive in Taiwan.
So it's cheaper in the Chicago.
Yeah, in the States in
US?
general.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, in general, it's much cheaper. I mean, you're going to have some gourmet taco or Mexican food places, but in general, it's not as expensive as it is in Taiwan.
Oh, yeah. I remember that because the first time I ate a taco is in New York City. And not... the Taco Bell. But Mexican people will say that's
not Mexican.
Yeah. But I love that. And I like the texture of the crispy tacos. But when I went back to Taiwan, at first I haven't found any crispy like tacos. But recently I found some.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Nice.
But it's so expensive.
I know, aren't they? Because it's funny, Taco Bell is one of the first food. When I was in marching band, my friends brought me to Taco Bell. And I couldn't read half the thing. What's a quesadilla? It's a quesadilla. And they're like,
Quesadilla.
Quesadilla,
what-
sorry.
It's basically a big tortilla, and then you put
okay.
cheese inside, and you fold it in half, and then you kind of heat it up. It's all cheese and meat,
okay.
and then you cut it up and eat it like almost like a pizza.
So it's folded pizza.
Okay.
I get really angry because most of the quesadilla in Taiwan, you see lettuce inside. Who puts lettuce in quesadillas? Excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
Like, why? Why? I
don't know.
It makes me so angry. I'm like, you do not put lettuce in quesadilla. I'm sorry, you just don't. You put it on the side. If you want to put it on the side, that's okay. Do not put it in a quesadilla. Melted cheese and lettuce are not best friends. They're just not. So yeah.
And the thing is, like, the ingredients are also hard to find in Taiwan, so you can like barely make it by yourself.
Yeah, I don't really know where to find jalapenos in Taiwan.
Oh, is it like really? You don't have find any?
I know someone who had found some, but I
Okay.
personally have no idea where to find them, and I don't make it enough, so I just didn't try
okay.
very hard.
Okay.
But yeah, jalapenos, and there's also poblano, chipotle, all kinds of different peppers that you couldn't really find in Taiwan.
Oh yeah, I think the Mexican food is they have a lot of different type of paper. They will use it to like for different dishes. So it's you taste slightly different.
Yes.
But in Taiwan, probably they just use the same. So
They use the same red chili pepper. I've eaten, like there's a place I kind of like, but like I'm like, this is not jalapeno and it doesn't taste right. I'm like, stop putting red chili pepper inside. Now it tastes like your regular noodle stand chili pepper sauce. Don't do that. Or they'll put vinegar in salsa. You don't put vinegar in salsa. You put lemon in salsa, not vinegar.
So okay. So when you are in Chicago, would you like do cook a lot?
Oh, I cooked a lot when I was in the States. It's funny because you always want something you don't have. So when I was in the States, I cook a lot of Taiwanese food.
Yeah.
I cook a lot of everything, but I definitely cook a lot more Taiwanese food. When now I'm back in Taiwan, I cook a lot of Western food. Mexican food,
yeah,
Western
makes sense.
food, your mac and cheese, things you don't see as much in Taiwan, I'll just make myself.
Oh yeah, because like when you wanted to eat outside, it would be more expensive or hard to find.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember there's once I went to a shop, a restaurant to eat beef stew, and they charged me 400 NT for the beef stew, and there's only 3 pieces of beef inside. I'm like, excuse me? 3 pieces of beef? So that weekend I went home and like used about 1.5 kilo of beef and made 2 giant pots of beef stew, and I was very happy. I was very
You
happy.
mean in state? In state?
No, in Taiwan.
Oh, okay.
In the States, I'll cook a lot of like, lu rou fan. I make my own dumplings. I'll try to make my own. I eat a lot of noodles.
Ooh.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll bring like different food, like 鹅油香葱.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That sounds so.
That,
sounds
well,
so good.
because when you don't have a lot of food, just a little bit of that with some noodles and some like hot pot kind of thinly sliced pork,
Yeah.
that's a good meal.
Yeah.
And it tastes like home.
Oh
So
yeah.
you'll eat that.
Yeah.
Or you can put that in rice with a little soy sauce and a sunny side up egg. So good. Yeah, so I cook a lot, both in the States and when I can in Taiwan. But it depends on where I am and what I feel like and whatever's in the fridge. So
When did you realize you love cooking though?
when I was in high school or younger, I started learning how to cook since I was like 10. My mom would let me help her
10?
make eggs, or she'll let me try to make fried rice and
Basic
everything.
things, yeah.
Then I started baking when I was in high school. And then as I grow older, I just started trying to make all kinds of different food. So yeah, I experiment a lot. Yeah, I started making eggs when I was 10. 我就妈教我炒蛋 like
Right.
So yeah, that's what I did. I'm like, can you please help teach me how to make like eggs? And you know, if you go to the night market when I was younger, when they make oyster omelet or they'll always make fried rice there, that's where I learned how to make fried rice. I would just watch them make fried rice. So I know you put the egg down first,
Yes.
and then you put the rice in and you mix it, and then you put everything else in there. So I like to watch and learn a lot of things, but I'm very bad at making dumplings or anything you have to be very good with your hands because I'm just very clumsy with my hands. So all my dumplings and buns, everything looks like monsters.
It's okay.
It's edible, just not
if
pretty.
it's delicious, I think it doesn't matter.
I will never be able to work at Ding Tai Fung.
You need to fold 18,
23.
23, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
there's like a specific rules for 小笼包.
小笼包.
Yeah.
But I think the fried rice is pretty hard for everyone. If you wanted to like to make the heat and to make the smells, everybody will say you need to 锅气 in your fried rice.
Okay.
You need a high enough heat.
Yeah.
And that's a problem is even most stoves at home, you can have high enough heat, but the problem is because the heat source is not enough. So once you put any ingredient in, it lowers the temperature of the pan.
Yes.
And then that's why you don't get that taste because the heat on the bottom is not strong enough to keep the pan at that temperature all the time.
Yeah.
So that's why. But if you're not that picky, you can still make somewhat okay fried rice at home. But if you want that, like, nice, tasty smell, I'll leave it to the professionals.
Uncle Roger approved.
Oh, wow. Nice. Okay. Oh, is there like, except for the Mexican food, do you have any like recommend or any street food? If like there's any friends, your friend wanted to visit to Chicago, would you recommend any dishes that barely can find in Taiwan?
Well, I don't know about street food because they don't really eat a lot of street food. You maybe
really?
get you'll get food trucks, but you don't really get a lot of street food in Chicago.
Okay.
Not a lot. Maybe you'll get like a hot dog stand, but that's about it. You don't really get a lot of street food. It's very Taiwanese things to have. But if you were to try Chicago, everyone talk about Chicago style pizza because Chicago deep dish pizza is literally, it's like a pie. We'll call it a pie. But it's funny because Chicago people don't really eat that very often. We take like people who come to visit Chicago to go eat that. That's about it. If you think about it, it's like you don't eat Ding Tai Fung all the time. You'll take people who come and visit to go eat Ding Tai Fung, but you don't really eat it all the time. It's very similar with deep dish pizza. And I think for the different foods in Chicago, it really depends on what you like. Because I have a few places of all kinds of different things. But for me, one thing I always like about the U.S. is, aside from Mexican food, is diner food. It's what we would usually call brunch in Taiwan. And in Taiwan, brunch can be very expensive. And usually it's like overpriced and the food isn't like, it's good food, but it's like, you gave me 2 eggs.
Overpriced.
Yeah, 2 eggs and a piece of bacon and you want 400 NT from me? So, but in the U.S., you get a lot of diners. Sometimes you call them greasy spoons because they don't look the cleanest. They're not really fancy. They're not really where you would take like, Instagram models to take pictures there. But you get like, I like steak and eggs or I like burger and eggs. So you get a burger and eggs for like $7. 2 eggs, hash browns, burger, and then you get toast.
That's pretty.
Wow.
That's pretty adequate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I miss. It's like something like that. Of course, after the pandemic, the inflation in the U.S. went crazy. So that's probably not $7 anymore. But what I always remember is like, even $10-15 can get you very, very good breakfast. And they also I like corned beef hash too. Corned beef hash. So corned beef is like a salt cured beef. Usually it's brisket. And corned beef hash, usually they'll take the corned beef, they'll cook it, they'll chop it up with potatoes, and then they'll cook it into like a big pile. And it's kind of salty, and it tastes really, really good with eggs and hash browns. So
I know there's a place like a Filipino supermarket near like Mingquan West Road actually sell that kind of thing. That was the first time I went to Philippines, and I had a lot of like American style breakfast, and that tastes so good. I totally love corned beef.
I know.
Yeah,
So
I know the
haven't-
taste.
I
You know,
haven't-
that is
I
so
haven't
good.
tried
It's so salty.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
so good.
You definitely need to like eat with something though. Otherwise, you know, you will probably need to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's really good.
Yeah.
And like if you have like, you know, kind of like a runny egg yolk to eat with the corned beef, oh, heaven. Heaven
Yeah.
on
I'm
a
hungry right
plate.
now.
It's so beautiful when listen to you like describing those food image though, because I can totally tell the full of the love of
Just
the
all
food.
the love
yeah.
for the food. I
Yeah.
can. My husband always say, "Do not ask her to talk about food. She
Food
will
anymore."
not shut up. She'll talk for 3 days and still not shut up. Please
So
just stop."
this podcast will be 3 day long.
Yeah.
But I think in like nowadays we are easily to get some foreign food than before. But I think there is some slightly difference when you eating in like in Taiwan or you eating in their local place.
Well,
Like
the ingredients, the prices
yeah.
are very different. So some of the things you can replicate in Taiwan, some of the things you can't really replicate in Taiwan. And beef in general in Taiwan is much more expensive. And also it depends on a lot of places, if they want to survive, they kind of have to cater to the Taiwanese taste. They have to make it a little bit more Taiwanese because otherwise, think desserts. What is the best compliment a Taiwanese person can offer for a dessert? It's not too sweet.
oh.
When you hear anyone talk about a good dessert, their first line is like, "Oh, the dessert's really nice. It's not too sweet."
Yeah. I think, for example, like donuts. Like I think most Taiwanese people doesn't like the too sweet donut. Like what is his name?
Dunkin' Donuts.
No. It's like
Krispy Kreme.
Krispy
Kreme is like crack. It's so good.
For me, it's a little too sweet. I don't know.
Krispy Kreme, the best Krispy Kreme, they used to have a conveyor belt because Krispy Kreme is made in a big machine. And some of the Krispy Kreme shops, they will box their own donuts to get shipped to different places. So they'll have a conveyor belt. And when the conveyor belt is running, there's like literally warm donuts coming off.
Yes.
And when I first went to the States, when you walk into the donut shop, if the light is on and the machine is on, you get a free hot donut.
A free?
Yes.
Ooh.
A free hot donut. And you eat that, you're like, I want a box of this. It is the best sales strategy I've ever seen. Because hot Krispy Kreme right off the conveyor belt is the best donut I have ever had. Literally.
Okay. I think people will have a stereotype for like a state police.
Yes.
They were always thinking they would have a box of donut. Is that true?
Well, I had a few police friends, and they're just like, please don't give me any more donuts, because I think it's funny to give them donuts anyway.
Yeah.
Some of them will, but not always. The thing is, donuts is a very American thing. If you have an office party, sometimes they just bring a box of donuts anyway, because they're easy. They're very easy to share compared to cake and everything. Everyone can just take their own thing. So that's why a lot of times they'll bring it in. And also it's something that's easier to eat on the road.
Oh, sure.
Because hot dog have condiments and they fall, right? There's like sauces and stuff falling off the hot dog. And they don't really have meat buns,
Meat bun?
like 包子.
Oh, okay.
They don't have anything like that they can eat on the road. So if they want to eat on the road, it's either a pastry, a croissant, but a croissant is more French, or croissant.
Croissant.
American people say croissant, French are croissant.
Right.
Yeah.
But you don't really eat those, and you don't really have like the small round bread we usually get in Taiwan. So the easiest thing to eat and bring around is usually going to be a donut. So that's why.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. But they're sweet. Like, I think it's a slightly difference that I think Taiwanese people usually take their like main dish like lunch or dinner. We want to eat something is salty.
Well, like that's more of a snack for breakfast, though. They'll usually eat it for breakfast or a snack. But for Taiwanese, the biggest thing is you want to eat something warm.
Oh, yeah.
It's not so much like sweet or salty. You want something warm. So you want like a hot lunchbox, or you want something that's warm and nice to eat. But in the States, a lot of times you'll just have a sandwich.
Oh, yeah.
And the sandwich is not sweet, but it's cold.
Oh, yeah.
And eating a sandwich with salad in wintertime is one of the saddest experiences ever. I'm like, I just want some soup. This is so cold. I am freezing and I really don't want any more cold food. So yeah,
They do that in winter. Still eat the cold sandwich.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Wow.
But why is that the culture about? Why is that have this kind of diet?
Yeah, because
They go home early. Okay, if you look at high school in the U.S., your lunch hour is usually at around 11 or maybe noon.
Yeah.
And you'll eat a sandwich because you'll pack a sandwich to go to school because they don't have anything to heat the sandwiches up. They don't have, like, when we're in elementary school or middle school, they'll have something that'll heat the things up.
Yeah.
If you want something hot, you can go to the cafeteria in the school. Or if you want to save money, you can pack your own lunch. So when you pack your own lunch, you don't have anywhere to heat it up, you pack a sandwich. And you have to realize, though, they get out of school at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So they can go home and eat a bigger dinner at home.
All right.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have a big lunch. But in Taiwan, it's a little different. And we also have a very big nap culture. I feel like it's very much connected to that, too. We always need a nap because we don't get out of work until like 5 or 6, sometimes later. There, usually you get off at 5 in the afternoon if you work in an office. Or when you're at school, you get out of school at 3. So you can eat whatever you want. So you don't really have to have a big lunch. And that's why a sandwich for lunch is perfectly fine. But in Taiwan, you have a long afternoon. If you're a student, it started when you're a student. You have to volunteer to stay at school to study until, 5, 6, sometimes 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And you probably need to
So,
go to the cram
yeah,
school after, though. So you need to.
Exactly. So you need a bigger meal. But there, you don't have to. You go home for dinner.
All right.
That
So
makes sense.
Very
that's
different
a
culture.
Big
Yeah.
difference in culture. Yeah.
We talk a lot about the food and the life
Cooking,
you stay in the state. I think the most important thing, and the people care, the audience who listen to our show, I think they care about if they are going to study or work in the Western country, how to improve their English, and how do you improve your English?
Well, I've always liked English since I was very young. So when I was much younger, I would write down lyrics. I like lyrics. So when I hear a song I like, if you want to go sing it in karaoke especially, you'll write it down so you can memorize it easier so you don't have to keep looking at the screen.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot of lyrics. I learned a lot of words from lyrics, and I didn't necessarily know what all the words mean back then. So that was one of the ways I've learned it. And I was just talking to my husband about this recently. And I really miss the time when you have to learn the language to play a video game. Because if you think about it, a lot of the older games, whether it's on PC or on a console, a lot of people my age learn Japanese through playing RPG.
Oh, yes.
And a lot of the kids now, like for instance, if they're playing Fortnite or some other games and they're trying to communicate with someone abroad, that's where they learn a lot of, words and bad words altogether. Like, sometimes you need a little bit of filter. But you have to realize back in the day when you're playing these games, they're in their original language. So you kind of, in order to play it better, you learn some words. And this is how you accumulate it little by little. It doesn't happen overnight. And one thing that makes me kind of sad is in Taiwan, we try so hard to focus on exam English. And so for a lot of people, English is something that's painful. It's something that they're forced to learn. It's something that I have to do because I need this to get a better grade, to get into a better school or anything. But for me, English is something that I just really enjoy learning. And a lot of the contents I like, a lot of the TV shows, movies, music, whatever, and they're all in English. And over time, I realized that when you can watch or listen to anything in English in its original language, just like when we listen to some jokes, if you translate it into a different language from Chinese into a different language, the meaning and
You lose the taste.
Yeah, you don't have what it feels like as much anymore. And I like learning everything when it's in its original state. It's like when you watch anime, if it's dubbed, like different, like dubbed in Chinese, it sounds terrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
You need to
same
listen
idea.
to
Same
Japanese.
idea. So I want to listen to it in Japanese, but I also want to understand it in its original language. So for me, that is actually my biggest motivation in learning language. So I think to learn a language, the most important thing is exposure. You try to be and I'm not saying like you have to live abroad or anything, especially nowadays with YouTube and everything. You're able to get a lot of material in English. So through exposure, you find something you're interested in. Like for instance, for me, it's food and maybe some pop culture. And then when you do that, you learn little by little different vocabularies, how people say things, what things are supposed to sound like. And then you start building your vocabulary. But one thing that I find very useful is remembering the words you don't know or the expression you've never heard of, and then go and ask someone about it. Because there are going to be expressions that you've never heard before, like knock on wood. What is knock on wood? Like, why is there wood and why do I have to knock on it?
Yeah. What does it mean?
It means good luck, hope for the best, knock on wood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or like cross your fingers, like fingers crossed. These are things we never have ever heard of, and they never teach you this in school. So you have to ask someone, and don't be afraid to ask questions. I think that's really, really important. Is a lot of times when we're speaking English or when we're learning English, we're afraid to make a mistake. We're afraid that we'll sound stupid. We're afraid that if we ask a question, they'll think less of us. You know what? If they think less of you, it's their problem. They're a bad person. Because what's so wrong in asking someone a question because you don't understand? I don't see the point of feeling ashamed because you don't understand. If you understand everything, then you don't need me. If you understand everything, then why do we need teachers? Why do we need to learn? So I think it's really important to ask questions when you don't really know what's going on. And I don't really believe in trying to buy a book and then memorize all the vocabulary inside because it's painful.
Yeah.
It's incredibly painful to do that. And no one likes to do painful things. I believe that learning is, one of my professors say the best, learning is an idea of repeating a positive experience. When you learn something and you eventually realize you're able to get it, that's a positive experience. So when we're learning, what we're trying to do is to try to replicate that positive experience. So once you can replicate it often, then you're going to be able to learn more, and you want to learn more because it's a positive experience, because you feel good about it. So I think the biggest thing is find something you like, start learning things about it, and one day you'll realize, you know what? I can understand what's going on without having to read the subtitles. You know what? I kind of know what that word means without having to look it up. And that's a great feeling. Then you want to replicate it. And that's how you build it up. It doesn't happen overnight. And for me, I'm still learning all the time, especially with how fast language is changing nowadays. There are a lot of sayings online that I have to Google because I don't know what it is. Like, recently I had to look up the word Riz.
Oh, yeah, Reese.
Yeah, see, you know it, but I don't because I'm a bit older. But I have no problem looking it up or asking someone about it because I think that's the nature of learning. That's the nature of language. It's ever changing. So if I can leave everyone or whoever's learning English with one thing is like, don't be afraid to ask questions if you don't know what's going on. And also just try to find something you like and keep yourself exposed in an environment that you can use that language more often.
That's true. Yes.
Right. Well, that's very helpful for the people who got the obstacle.
Yeah. And I think probably in lesson way it's more easy that we have internet. You can watch a bunch of YouTube video or listen to some podcasts. But for like speaking, do you have any advice to people who wanted to practice their speaking?
Well, speaking, there are a few different things. Some people shadow. Shadow means you repeat whatever is said. Like you'll pause a video and repeat what they say. That's called shadowing. Or you'll say it as soon as they say it. There's also another one called echo method. If you Google echo method on YouTube, there's a TED Talk called, it's by a professor in NTU. And she's actually American, but she teach this method called the echo method, 回音法. And it is very, very good because it actually pinpoints a lot of the problems when it comes to pronunciation when we're trying to learn how to speak English. So that is a really good video. It's only, I think, about 18 minutes long. It is a fantastic way to see how you learn. But one thing is because in Taiwan especially, we don't really get a lot of opportunity to try to learn how to speak English. Maybe you'll read some class text in school, especially if you go to a regular high school like I did. You'll maybe read a few things in school with the entire class. No one's going to sit there and tell you, oh, you know what? That doesn't sound right. And no one is there to talk with you. But what I always say is you have to have the courage of like, sometimes you'll see like some older gentleman on the bus and they see a foreigner like, oh, you're so handsome. You're very good. You have to have that kind of courage.
Yeah.
Find someone to talk to. And I'm not saying like, drag whatever, but there are also a lot of language exchange cafes or places where they have language exchange programs. If you want to go talk to someone, that's a good place to start. For me, earlier we talked about like, I'm more of like an introvert than an extrovert.
Oh, yes.
I talk to myself sometimes. I do.
Some people will say
Yeah,
they
like-
will do that.
Or when you see something in life, when you try to explain something, try to explain it in English. What would you do if you want to explain something like this in English? When you see something, if you want to describe something, how would you describe it in English? And you can think to yourself. And after you think about it, if you can, try to actually voice it. Because speaking is one of those things that when you think, everything sounds perfect. You know the words you want to use. You know exactly what it's supposed to sound like. And then as soon as you start speaking, you're like, why do I sound so terrible? What is going on? Why am I tongue-tied? Why is my pronunciation like this? Why can't I say this word properly? And so it is very much muscle memory too, because English and Chinese have different pronunciations. They have different vowels, different consonants. They sound different. So you have to get used to having your mouth move a certain way so you sound right. And I think actually voicing it out when you're speaking is crucial because you can think it all you want to, but until you actually voice it, it's not going to be the same. So yeah, I think that's one of the most important things.
Yeah, I think I have this problem when I was thinking. Feels like, okay, I can speak this sentence, but when I actually speak it out, I was like, why it is so weird, or something is like not right. But yeah, I think this is really important to practice to speak it out.
Just voice it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will ask me about accent. Accent and pronunciation are actually two different things. Accent shows you where you're from. Pronunciation is how you say a word. And they're a little bit different because you can't really say only one accent is the right accent. Is the British accent the perfect accent then? Or American accent? American, you have like Southern accent, you have Midwestern accent, you have a not East End, but East Coast accent. They're all different. Which one is perfect? Which one is right? None of them is actually right. So I don't think a lot of times in Taiwan, people seem to put a lot of emphasis on your accent sounding like, oh, you don't sound American. Who cares?
Yeah, okay.
Some of the best speakers in Taiwan have an accent, and I admire them with their English ability. They can speak so eloquently. Who cares what their accent sounds like? Their message is clear. So I think, but pronunciation is a different thing because with the wrong pronunciation, people will not be able to understand you. But if people are worried about their accent and like, oh, I sound too Taiwanese, that really isn't a main concern. Like, I feel like that's a myth and something that so many people are like, and even online, you'll see people like, oh, well, you don't sound that great. I'm like, that's rude. We're all learning, and I think it's rude to be picking on people like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think the first step is like you willing to talk. And this is the most important things. I heard some people say that actually Taiwanese people's English level is not that bad. Because like actually we learned a lot of vocabularies. We can actually express what we are thinking. But what we like afraid is to say it out. Yeah.
I tell a lot of my students this. I'm like, you know so much more than you give yourself credit for. You know all this. You're just afraid to say it.
Yes.
So there's also another myth in Taiwan that you have to use every word you learned. I memorized all these words in the vocabulary book. I have to use the best word. But there's no such thing as best word. Just say what you mean. And I don't see the point or necessity to try to show off how many vocabularies you know, how many words you know. We don't talk like that in Chinese. Why would we talk like that in English?
Okay, so you share a lot of like life and experience in the state, and I think like people concerned about is like how to really improve their English skill and levels. So right now we have a lesson about speaking and listening. So could you introduce with our audience? 好，那我们现在就让老师给我们介绍一下这门课程吧。
好。 那相信大家听完这个 podcast 之后，都对我是怎么样子一个老师比较有一点了解了。那现在我在阳朔有开托福的听力跟口说的先修课程，欢迎大家来上课。或者是如果你想要有比较多实际上面的练习的话，也欢迎你们来阳朔找我上托福的实体课程。希望跟大家可以在课堂上见。
好，那我们今天的 Interesting 鹰嘴豆就到这边啦，我们下次见，拜拜，
拜拜。